Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the only CalTV show whose touchdowns actually count. I'm Dan Fiedler.
And I'm Zeshan and Dan.
And today we're going back
and forth. Now let's jump right into football. After a devastating loss to the USC Trojans last week, the Bears now fly out to Reser Stadium where they take on the Oregon State Beavers. Now the Oregon State Beavers have already taken out the USC Trojans at home, so this is obviously going to be a difficult game for the California Bears. Now Dan, how do you see the Bears faring off against the Oregon State Beavers this weekend?
All right, Zeshan, I'm not really sure what to make of this game coming on Saturday because it is on the road for the Bears, and they've just had an abysmal track record. Their only road victory comes against Washington State, which is a trashy team. Haven't really played that well against Arizona and Maryland and USC, so that's a big minus for the Bears. But they do have Kevin Riley, who's for sure going to be the starting quarterback this week, and he's from Oregon. He played at Beaverton High, so he's going to have the home crowd just a little bit. You know, Reser Stadium gets rowdy for their Beavers. A little bit of the home crowd, and he's going up against Sean Canfield as opposed to Lyle Moivo for the Beavers because Moivo's out with an injury. So we got to back up against somebody who's going to be playing with a lot of heart, by the way, because of what happened with the debacle with Oregon State last year. So that's going to be a plus for the Bears. So I'm not sure how it's going to play out.
I don't know, Dan, but for Oregon State, I mean, you still have to think about what's on the line right now. Pac-10 is online. Rose Bowl is on the line right now. That's something huge, especially for the Beavers who haven't been there in a while.
We now turn the topic to women's volleyball, and the number 7 California Golden Bears match up against the number 2 Stanford Cardinal in the Big Spike this weekend. It took the Cal Bears 20 games to get their first 19 victories, but they've fallen on somewhat hard times. They've lost 3 of their last 5, including upsets to Arizona, Washington, and USC. And now, Zeshan, with the situation markedly different this time around against Stanford, how do you see it playing out?
I don't know, Dan. When I think volleyball, 2 interesting things pop out in my mind specifically.
Okay.
One being Stanford has won the last 17 of 18 games.
Good fact.
And also the Bears have dropped their last 3 of 5. Now, I mean, if you still look at things, the only loss that Stanford has, is to guess who?
Right,
the
Cal.
Bears.
in their past 18
exactly.
games.
Exactly. So you know Stanford's looking for vengeance right now.
Right. Stanford is playing really good volleyball right now, and they're sort of on a roll. I mean, they would make it 18 out of 18 if it weren't for us. And the Bears have faltered a little bit. I mean, I can't really see them coming up with this game, even though they were victorious last time. Stanford's playing too good, and you know, even though it's at Haas Pavilion in Berkeley, I just can't really see them pulling it out. You know.
Now it's time to talk about my favorite sport of the year because basketball season is officially here. The Bears are coming off an exhibition win over the Seattle Pacific team, 91-70, this past weekend, and now look to open their season on November 15th against the Pacific Tigers. Now the Bears are a very young squad, and there's a lot of questions arising about what they can do in the Pac-10. Now, Dan, how do you see the Bears faring off in the Pac-10 this season?
You know, Mike Montgomery is coming along as a new coach, but a new coach really cannot make that huge of a difference in just 1 year. This is definitely a rebuilding year for the Bears. Last year they were 6-12, and I can't see them getting much more than that. There's not a whole lot of talent on this team. Their best player is Patrick Christopher, who played well last year when he didn't have to worry about most of the defense because they were all focused on Ryan Anderson and Devon Harden. With those 2 players gone, we lack in height, we lack in talent. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be a good year for the Bears ball team.
I think you sum it up perfectly, Dan. The one thing that I'm looking at is experience. I mean, in the Pac-10, I mean, it's just in basketball, period. Its experience is a huge factor. Right. The oldest players are juniors on this team. The returning juniors on this team. Patrick Christopher. There's also Theo Robertson is coming back. Theo Robertson's coming back. He had an awesome game in preseason, but
against Seattle Pacific when it took us 3/4 of the game just to finally break away from them.
So when it comes down to it, when you're playing teams, I mean, the Pac-10 like UCLA. Who else? I mean, Stanford is a little different this year, especially with the loss of the Lopez twins.
But you know, mainstays, UCLA, Oregon, USC is an up-and-coming team.
Difficult teams to play. That's all the time we have for today. For Dan Fiedler, I'm Zeshan Cosme. Be sure to tune in to CalTV.org to get your download on what's up in Cal Sports.